topic of today's presentation is celebrating Nari Shakti, select vignettes from Odisha. Now, this particular topic, the germ of this idea came in recent times, especially because of this wonderful woman from Odisha. She's none other than the President of the Republic of India, Srimad Mahamahima Rashtrapati Mahoday, Srimati Draupadi Murmu. And when she became the president, many people again started asking me, because I live outside Odisha, outside India, oh, you have a woman president, and we still don't have a woman president yet here in USA. So I said, yes, she's the second woman to be the president of India, and that too, she is from my home state, Odisha. So again, the topic about where is Odisha, anything special or significant about Odia women came up, and I was telling my colleagues and friends over here about different very interesting aspects that they were totally taken aback, like a small state from the farther corner of the world, and so many interesting things that they couldn't even think about. So because of that, and because of my last few years journey, as I had talked about in my previous talk, especially during COVID, when we were all studying like reading, studying, and knowing a lot about ourselves. I was also into the journey about knowing more about my heritage, and then I started finding more about the many not so well known aspects about my heritage and culture. So during that, one of the aspects was about women and their position in Odisha. Now, when the question comes about, like, the picture of women, when we talk about common perceptions, like Hindi, there is a, like in most of the parts of India, we think of women as Abala, Durbala, but at the same time, we worship most of the like powerful goddesses in India. So same is the story of Odisha in the last 200, 300 years of any literature that we study, or any common folklores or perceptions or general ideas about women. We find that when we ask, what do you think about a woman like an Odiani or a woman of Odisha? Oh, must be illiterate or not that well educated, oppressed, inconsequential, and the weaker sex, of course, and most importantly, the silently suffering ones who are secondary citizens. And many of it is actually also sadly true, because we have also seen in our own families somewhere or other, or in our society, many of these adjectives ringing true to this popular culture and recent memory perceptions. But when we step out into the streets of Bhubaneswar or Puri or Jajpur or Konark, first thing we see are the depictions of women all over the temple walls. And that is a completely different story. The general norm that was for more than a millennium, like almost till the 15th century CE, the temples that were constructed in Odisha, they're full of women who are who were celebrated in all their glory. They are not veiled at all. They're not treated as inferiors. They are bold and comfortable in their appearance. They are connoisseur of ornaments, styles, hobbies, arts, music, aesthetics, literature. Like you can see portrayal of women in all sorts of forms and aspects of life. So this is a complete different aspect that we find from reality. In reality, we knew that women are the silently suffering ones, the oppressed ones, and in veils and like the orna. But in the on the temple walls we see a complete different view. So how is that possible? In the last 300, 400 years, our perceptions have completely changed. And before I start this talk, let me start with a little disclaimer here. Our aim is to discuss about different vignettes, as I told, like little snapshots from here and there, and no way can a society in the whole world, no civilization, no society in the whole world can be perfect. So perfection is that utopian idea. So every society has its own lacunae, has its challenges, but the thing is, the thing to remember, what is important is how we have tackled those challenges or anything that is needed to be worked on. So in our case, in the case of Odisha here, we will, discuss, we'll try to focus on more of the, uh, like the positive, inspiring aspects of what we have seen in our society till now, till the 15th, 16th century, and even beyond, when the picture was more bleak. Even with that, we will try to find out if there was anything to be inspired from and all. So with that, let me start with my presentation today. And about this presentation, I'll just give you a quick idea what we'll be covering. The first thing we'll be covering is the eternal reverence for the divine feminine and the mother goddesses. Then we will discuss the echoes and imprints of the long prevailing societal norms in the day-to-day life of Odisha. And we will also see how women in Odisha were not any lessers or greaters, but were treated as equals for most part of the time. The golden period, being 5th century before Common Era till almost 15th, 16th century. And we will discuss some noteworthy mentions from this. Finally, we'll look at a snapshot of some pioneers, trailblazers, and change makers from Odisha's history through all these centuries. This particular picture you see, it's a lady sitting in a very beautiful, dignified pose. She doesn't have any veil or parda and all. She's very comfortable and, confident in her appearance. So, starting with some snapshots, the turn of the century, beginning of 20th century, these are some snapshots from literature which have been portrayed as paintings and in the reel. Um, this is a very iconic painting called Pallivadhu by artist Sri Bimbadhara Verma. And this is a portrayal of the character Kanakalata, which was later made into a movie. And these are some snapshots again from just pre-independence times to almost 70s. So a village ballet and, how ladies and girls in Odisha from rural areas and also the urban areas. So the idea being they were shy, coy, simple, rustic, homely, unsophisticated, yet resilient, determined, adaptive, also sophisticated, smart, so representing the best of both worlds. So by the 60s, 70s, 80s, there were more and more Odia women who were going and becoming postgraduates and doing a lot of things in different fields. So our first segment today, worshipping the divine feminine. Atulam tatra tattejaha sarvadeva sharirajam ekastham tadabhunnari vyaptaloka trayam trisha. So the incomparable radiance that was born from all gods and pervaded the three worlds came to one place and took the form of a woman. This is from none other than the important scripture Devi Mahatmyam. So uh, in the context of Odisha, we see that as long as we can go back in time, we see the worship of the divine feminine being a very very important aspect of Odia culture. Like be it the indigenous and tribal worship, where the the mother power of the nature was worshipped, or the ancient indigenous faiths like the Buddhism or Bauddha Dharma, Jaina Dharma, and even our Shaiva, Sakta, Vaishnava, all these faiths, we find different sculptures remaining, relics and sculptures and texts about both the goddesses, about worshipping the Devi, the supreme Devi as Mahisasura Mardini, as the mother goddesses Saptamatruka, as Chamunda, as the very unique Chausati Yogini worship, and of course the the one and only the tantra aspect of the goddess, the very is still now considered to be something of an enigma. And Odisha being one of the major tantra places of worship, according to most of the tantra scriptures, Odhyana, and Odra were home to famous sites of Shakti worship. So much so that when Huan Sang had visited, he had mentioned in his memoirs that the people of Odhyana made the acquisition of magical formulae their own. Now, I mentioned that beliefs and faith as old as time. So, these are just some snapshots from different monuments and temples and different other relics from parts of Odisha. Some of the older relics, as well as currently even worshipped ones. So the first these two are the goddess Tara, and then this is a Jaina goddess, the panel of Sapta Matrika from the ancient Parasurameshwara temple in Bhubaneswar. Then all these aspects of goddess who are still worshipped, as they are very, very uh, revered, and they're important goddesses of the local places. And if you go to any village, it's not just the story of Odisha, but all over India, if you go to villages and small towns, there will be a deity, a female goddess or a village deity who is revered and worshipped uh, with a lot of different rituals, and their worship has been happening since centuries, and we can say even as old as time. So one of the aspect is Kambeshwari, the worship of logs and stones as goddesses and gods, which we see very similar in many cultures around the world. So in Odisha also we have goddess Kambeshwari. This is the more recent picture of that, and there are all other goddess figures who are, some of them are like from the Tantra Pithas, Shakti Pithas of Odisha. Then this iconic sculpture is of goddess Durga as Mahishasura Mardini, depicted on the walls of the Parasurameshwara temple, which is an 8th century temple built by the Shailodbhavas. So you see the very unique representation of Durga killing Mahishasura. Um, the Mahishasura has a buffalo's head depicted here, not the human head. And why I picked this particular portrayal of Ma Durga as Mahishasura Mardini, because there are other forms of Ma Durga depicted all over Odisha in different temples. This is to show you the antiquity and continuity of goddess worship in Odisha. So the same form you see even now worshipped in the Gosani Jatra of Puri. Gosanis are the forms of goddesses who are worshipped in Puri during the Durga Puja time. And if you compare the stance and the way she is portrayed, you will see very uncanny resemblances of the pose and the posture. It's not the Saumya Murti which you will find in other parts of India, especially where Durga Puja is worshipped. It's the same fierceness and the same demeanor where how goddess is vanquishing the Mahishasura here and the Gosanis. The Gosani Jatra was started by a very illustrious king, Virachudaganga, and its antiquity and continuity, that's why, has continued through 11th century even till present times. The Shaktas have considered femininity as the highest active principle of universe. So in Odisha, Odisha being one of the major Shakta places of worship, you find the worship of goddesses as Ma Kali, Ma Chamunda, Ma Bhairavi, like different forms continuously throughout the region. The Chaucity Yogini temples, they are very magical places. They are very significant places of Yogini worship, um, like revered as well as feared, I would say. Feared because of the fierce aspects and the aspects where common people actually were uh, not able to understand the esoteric practices which were observed within this particular yogini worship. So although in India there used to be a lot of yogini temples in the belt of Odisha, Chhattisgarh, all these places, but now there are only 5 of them remaining, out of which 2 are in Odisha. This particular shot is of the Ranipur Jharial Chausati Yogini temple in Balangir, and there is one more temple in Hirapur. These temples are circular and they are open to the sky. And all the yoginis' figures are arranged in the walls or the niches of the temple, with the central one here being a form of Shiva, like Nataraja or Bhairava mostly. And so in Odisha we have still 2 uh, important places of Chausati Yogini temples in Hirapur and Ranipur Jharial. Then another aspect of worship of goddesses is more rustic and earthy. These type of worships were more mingled with spells, siddhi, faiths, and beliefs that appeared in mostly the common strata of the prevalent society. So many in Odisha still remember the folklore about Nitya Dhobani, who who was supposed to be an adept tantric lady, who is supposed to have been revered by none other than Biro Chudaganga himself. And there are the legends of the Satabhoni, or the seven sister legend. They were the 7 tantric maidens who lived in Kuwari Patna, the virgin tantric maidens who lived in Patnagarh, Balangir. And Gangi, Goduni, Suateluni, Yanadi Maluni, Niti Dhobani, like that, these names. You see this Goduni, Telluni, Maluni, these are not the name, these represent the castes or the clans they came from. The Goduni means cow herders. Telluri means somebody who made oil, that the female version of a person. So Maluni is somebody who wove garlands. Dhobani is a washerwoman. So like that, you see this strata, this social strata, where more of the so-called lower strata of the society. So, but this was a very popular form of faith and worship for a long time. And there is one more very interesting thing, that in Orissa, there are at certain places the instance of female priestesses. These unique traditions are mostly found in tribal and some indigenous practices. This particular picture is from Ma Sarangi Thakurani's award, where we still have a female priestess. Then this one is Ma Panchubarahi. Very recently, this particular temple had to be, the idols of the Barahis were shifted, and that was the first time in centuries when males actually held these idols, because they had to shift it from the temple to another place, because the sea, the Bay of Bengal, it actually engulfed this area because of rising sea level and super cyclones. So actually in this temple, there are only female priestesses who worship the goddesses. Then in Kutunipadar also, in a tribal area, there, it's a very significant, very beautiful it's a place where you find relics of very ancient temples and sculptures. And there is a female priestess there. And in lot of tribal groups of Odisha, you find priestesses. This one is a representative image of Dongriya Kondas, the female priestesses of the Dongriya Kondas, who are revered in their community a lot. And not just the Dongriya Kondas, in some other tribal clans also, you find female priestesses. Now, going to our next segment about festivals, rituals, and different miscellaneous practices, which are reflections of societal norms, beliefs, and way of thinking from day to day life, which has been strongly ingrained into the Odia psyche and society. Now, why are we going to discuss this, or is it something important that we all should actually now reflect upon as we go ahead? Because this particular uh, this particular lines from the Manusmriti caught my eye recently, that yatra naryastu pujyante ramantre tatra devata. Where the women are worshipped, there you find the gods. Gods love to be there where women are treated with the utmost respect. So that actually is very, very true in case of Odisha, as we'll see in the next slides. It's also it will be the same for many other parts of India and the world. But as I said before, we are doing a niche study on the aspects of Odisha. The first one I have chosen here is the very beautiful and very iconic line from none other than Gita Govinda, poet Kavi Jayadev's Gita Govinda, or Geet Govind, as in Hindi they would say. So the line is Dehi Pada Pallava Mudaram. Here, imagine in the medieval times, Kavi Jayadev writing these lines when the whole India would be like scandalized by the thought of man holding a woman's feet and placing it on his head. So, in a society where this is unheard of, in Odisha also, if something like this is unheard of, these lines were written and they were also accepted in the society that yes, Krishna actually held Sri Radha's feet and placed it, like he's asking Sri Radha to place her feet on her lotus-like feet on his head. So these lines in itself show us the psyche of the society at that time, which is an accepting fact about how they uh, thought of revering the woman's um, a woman. Then another thing is, this is a very, very common saying in Odia, and especially the word duhita. In Odia, the duhita is a word for female child, for girl child, means a daughter. A daughter is called duhita, jia, kanya, but duhita is also the word for daughter. Now, duhita, dui kuraku hita. That is a very common saying. I have heard my parents say that to me. My grandparents say that to me. Duhita dui kula kuhita. What does that mean? That means a girl child or a daughter is fortuitous for the kula of both her families. She is fortunate and fortuitous for her parents' family as well as the family she gets married into, that is her in-laws family. So that is the beauty of that word duhita. So that means a girl is very important to a family in both the aspects. This is very beautifully portrayed in the Sabitri Brata that all Odia women do. Like most of the Odia women do this very important Brata. This is just similar to, like, not same as Karwa Chauth, but a similar concept of Karwa Chauth, where a married woman keeps a fast and does rituals as a married lady for her husband. But Sabitri Brata is not just that. Sabitri Brata, although it celebrates of being a married lady and praying for her, for her love's life or longevity and everything good for him. It at the same time, the Sabitri Brata celebrates the story of Sabitri, that most of you might be knowing already, where she is not just a wife, because she is also a daughter, a daughter-in-law, and a wife. And when she asks the boon to God Yama, she doesn't ask for her husband's life in the first boon. In the first boon, she asks for her father-in-law and mother-in-law's eyesight to be returned and their kingdom to be restored. The second boon, she asked for her parents, to beget heirs and the prosperity of their parents. The third boon she asked uh, for her husband. So that shows how the epitome of woman empowerment has continued through the times. And at the same time, Savitri, as a princess, having a choice of marrying whoever she wanted, although she didn't have to marry Satyavan, but she decided to marry Satyavan. So it is about the choices, about decisions, great wit, perseverance, determination, empathy, loyalty, and love. So this is not just a fast or like woman like a weak woman just praying for her husband, how it is usually portrayed in research papers and all. No, it's not that. It's much more than that. So here, Duhita Duikulo Kuhita and the epitome of women empowerment we can find in this yearly ritual that Odia women follow year after year. Second one again is a Osha or a Brata that married Odia ladies do on the Thursdays of the holy month of Margasira. It is the Manavasa Gurubar, and the book that is read during this time is the Lakshmi Purana. So the Vrat and the rituals of the story, they symbolize independence, ingenuity, mutual respect, love, resourcefulness, equality, equity, and empathy. Now, what is the story about? Most of the stories in Odisha goes, most of our things revolve around the culture of Jagannath. This is also the same. So here is the story of Mahalakshmi, Devi Mahalakshmi, and Jagannath Balabhadra. So what happens is Mahalakshmi is ousted from her home by her husband and his elder brother. So when she's ousted because of something which is not actually a like big mistake or crime on her part, and she feels that it should not have been done, she goes on to prove that she can make her own standing independently. She doesn't have to depend on anyone, even her father or anyone else, to make her own standing. And she goes on to prove that. At the same time, the things that she's espousing are the causes of social upliftment, where at the time where the society was slowly getting populated with things like untouchability, about social divides, about women being the inferior sex, or things like that was starting to populate the society of the medieval, like post-medieval Odisha. During that time, this beautiful Purana was revived by Balaram Das, and it was read in every household of Odisha by the ladies, where this particular idea was reinforced again and again, that no one is big, no one is bigger, or no one is smaller. No, untouchability is not a thing. Like Jagannath's Mahaprasad is supposed to be eaten by everyone, like everyone can eat from, like share. And as I first said, like Devi Mahalakshmi proves that she is independent on her own right. And finally, when Jagannath and Balabhadra, they they understand whatever was wrong, and they say the same thing to the world. They give the same message about how women should be respected and treated in the society, about not uh, putting this untouchability and other things in practice. There is a very beautiful social message from this story. And this vrata, this Manavasa Gurubar, is every Thursday of Margashira. The same books are read, and this is continued every year since centuries. Another very interesting aspect about women standing, we can see in the some of the rituals of Ratha Jatra, where some healthy conflicts or discords between the divine couple, Sri Jagannath and Ma Lakshmi, happens. It's a very quaint ritual that happens during the Ratha Yatra, when they actually behave like humans. So what happens is, as you all know, Jagannatha, Balabhadra, with his brother and sister, after getting recovered from their fever and quarantine period, they go for they go out to meet their relatives and go out for some holiday time. And during that, he tells, before going, he tells his um, wife, Ma Lakshmi, that I'm going to go, but I'm just going for a day. I'll come back soon. So Ma Lakshmi says, okay. And when Jagannath goes, he had not been very honest. So he doesn't go just for a day. They, after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, when 4 days pass and he still hasn't come back, then Ma Lakshmi has now started feeling neglected, and she gets picked on her husband. Now she steps out of her home and goes out to confront him. And when she does that, she's helped by her friend Ma Bimala. Ma Bimala is the goddess who is the Shakta goddess who is worshipped in Jagannath temple, and she helps Ma Lakshmi by giving her Mohajurna, which she's supposed to lure her husband back away quickly home. So when she goes to meet Sri Jagannatha, um, after the ritual, when she comes, she's still angry, and she symbolically she breaks a little piece of the log on God Jagannatha's chariot, or the ratha. So this is how, like, in a normal life, a woman might behave when she gets angry, or like she's not really angry, but to show, like, angry, and to show that she will, like, cause something that she might also later feel guilty about. So because she feels guilty, she comes through another street very quietly, without any baja or splendor. So very human behavior from Lakshmi. Then after that, when Jagannath, Balabhadra, and Subhadra, they come back on the Bahuda Jatra, when they come back to the temple after 9 days, another very interesting thing happens, which usually happens between a real husband and a wife. So when they come back, Ma Lakshmi is still so angry and pegged. She closes the main door of the temple and doesn't let them inside the house. So, to pacify this angry wife, Jagannath tries to cajole her by saying different things, by trying to tell her that, why it happened. And so there is a proper Lakshmi Narayan Bachanika which happens between the servitors of both. It's a long dialogue discourse where Ma Lakshmi is abusing with words, and she's calling names to Jagannath and telling him all sorts of things from other side of the door, and Jagannath trying to cajole her. So finally, after a long discourse, Mahalakshmi gets, she changes her mind, opens the door, and Sri Jagannath offers her favorite thing, Rasagolla. So since on Niladri Vijay is the day when Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra come back to the temple, Rasagolla is offered to Lakshmi by Jagannath. So now Rasagolla Divasa, or the day of Rasagolla, is observed on that day. So again, this very sweet story about this beloved, delicious sweet from Odisha, which has its connections to the Jagannath culture. Now to one of the most iconic festivals, which is starting to create buzz around the country, which nobody knew about before, which Odias knew, but none outside Odisha nobody knew. But slowly it is picking momentum. People are starting to know about it. It's none other than the festival of Raja. So it's not Raja. Many people like Raja, but it is Raja. So it is a unique festival that celebrates womanhood and fertility. Raja, the word itself means the act of menstruation, or periods. So that word, it's an age-old belief associated with this festival that Mother Earth goes through her fertility period during this time, or this period. Thus, she needs rest, care, and pampering. All activities that might cause extra pain to her, such as farming or any heavy work, are given a pause during this time. And her special days are celebrated by food, fun, and gaiety, because fertility is the most important aspect that creates another life, right? Like the life to continue on this planet, a woman or a feminine figure has to be fertile, and this act is celebrated. So Mother Earth's period is celebrated, as well as the people, like the girls of a house or the society, who are represent representing this particular aspect of creating life in future. They are pampered, they are celebrated. So the rituals and festivities associated with Raja are like gaiety, fun celebrations like the Doli Khela or swinging on the swing. Pampering all the girls, young girls are pampered, like they are given new clothes, they dress up, they are, like there are lots of different varieties of pitha, mitha, panno, like different food, sweets, different things. So there is a lot of fun things happening during Raja. A very unique thing which is also what earlier used to be done is people, girls didn't walk bare feet on earth so that they don't cause extra pain to earth. They used to wear plantain stem on their foot or cock sole so that their footfall would be more softer, so that Mother Earth will have less pain for her. So there are different pitha, panno, that is betel leaf pan, and podo pitha is the most iconic pitha that is made during Raja. The final day is there is the Basumati Snana. Basumati means Mother Earth. Snana is like giving birth. So there is a ritualistic bathing and purification of Mother Earth. So the symbolically, the sirapua and other things, the grinding stone, those are given a bath. Some other festivals during the year which are very important for, like, where girls are celebrated. The one is Kumar Purnima. Again, this is an exclusively fun filled festival for young girls, where it the girls are again pampered with a lot of food treats, new clothes, they dress up, there is a lot of interesting rituals and celebrations. So and there is Puchi Khela, that is a very fun game, and there were competitions among little girls and young girls on this Puchi Khela. There is another Osa or Vrat called Khudrukuri. It is mostly done in the coastal parts of Odisha. This particular Vrat, it shows both the aspects, where like sometimes when women have suffered cruelty or inconsideration from others, even fellow women, is portrayed in the story of the Apoi. But at the same time, here it inculcates determination, integrity, austerity, compassion, hope, and faith. Hope and faith, because here Topoi was hoping and praying for her brothers who were the Sadhavas for the safe return after their Bali Yatra. So all these type of osas, vratas, and rituals throughout the year, like when the girls do, they we also did as young girls. So these very good learnings and value systems were added into our day-to-day, life and beliefs as we grew up. This particular festival, Prathamashtami, this is again a very, very unique festival, which we will understand. Like when we ask people about, like in many parts of India, even now, girl children are not like, sadly, in some houses, not like everywhere, but at least few decades ago, it was like girl. If there was a girl in a house, some people would be sad. They would want a boy, but this particular festival here is evidence in itself that in Odisha, I this particular let me say what it is about. Like, this festival celebrates the firstborn of the house. So irrespective of being a male child or a female child, the firstborn is celebrated. So they are given a bandapana, they are given like a very special pitha that day. The other siblings also get, but the firstborn is pampered. So the firstborn, if it was only a male dominated society, then this festival would have lost its sheen and it would have maybe discarded after centuries. But it still goes on through the centuries. It has still continued and still is done. That means a girl child was equally equally given, like the importance for a girl child was also not any lesser than a boy child. It might be in some cases, in some families, they might have coveted a male child, of course, but at the same time, the existence of this festival and the continuity of this particular festival and ritual shows that girls have been revered and given importance throughout the times. Now, we saw all these rituals and festivals. The main aim of my showcasing all that was, if we look into our own day-to-day life, our language, like how I showed Duhita, it is in our language. How I showed you Dehipada Pallava Mudaram, a line from a poem. There are so many other instances. I just picked only few, like that, these rituals, like we know like how we celebrate, but why, or like why they have sustained, why they have still continued with that much interest. So these all need to be re-examined and introspected. As a society, we need to introspect and understand where we came from, what we have done, how we have evolved, and still what we are doing. Are there any good things from our, a long back that we have continued doing? So if that is so, then we can still work on many better things in the future. So now with that, let's go and check out some examples of royals and commoners who both garnered immense respect and adoration, and we will just cherry pick some noteworthy mentions. The first being the most iconic of all, a queen from Odisha. Her name was Tribhuvana Mahadevi. She is the legendary queen from the royal house of the Bhaumakaras, a queen who commanded a standing army of 300,000 soldiers, that is 3 lakh soldiers. A queen who was mentioned by far away, the historians and geographers from far away Persia, from ancient Persia, people like Ibn Khordad Bey, Ibn Rasta, they have mentioned in awe and admiration about the Rania, who in whose kingdom the tallest elephants were found, and other things they mention. So, who was Tribhuvan Mahadevi? What did she do? Why is she so important? The first thing, since we are talking about women in this slide, is in her kingdom, the women were well educated and equally empowered, with even a choice to engage in military affairs. Her reign, her reign period restored economic and socio-cultural stability after years of chaos and turmoil in their kingdom. Now, she was a queen who it is known that she levied very less taxes, or mrudu kara, as they say, and her opponents she had vanquished, and people really looked up to her, not just in her kingdom but the feudatory states later. They really looked up to her because of the way she administered and ruled the kingdom. And the most unique aspect about this particular Bhaumakara dynasty of Odisha is that out of 20 Bhaumakara rulers throughout the time, there were 6 of them who were ladies. So Dandi Mahadevi, Prithvi Mahadevi, Gauri Mahadevi, Bakula Mahadevi, Dharma Mahadevi, Tribhuvan Mahadevi, they were all like ladies. And it is not just like how a father's daughter becomes a queen, or a queen's daughter becomes a queen. No, in this family, even a daughter-in-law could become a queen, a niece or an aunt or a stepmother, anybody who was eligible, a boy or a girl. So much so that there were 6 Bhaumakara women rulers through the times. And during their ruling period, some of the most significant works in architectural marvels, like they patronized all sorts of faiths in their kingdom. It is not just that because some of them had followed Buddhism, they will only support Buddhist works. No, and who's the ones who were Vaishnavs, they just supported Vishnu temples. No, they supported and patronized every set of faith and worship that flourished in their kingdom. So now going back a little back beyond Queen Tribhuvan Mahadevi's time. Queen Tribhuvan Mahadevi's time was between 8th and 10th centuries of CE, like AD. But we'll go a little back to the times of the one and only Samrat Kharavela, Mahameghavahana Oira Kharavela. During his times, uh, one of the most iconic things that is remaining, like the structures or the relics that remains, are the cave temples of Udaygiri and Khandagiri. And the different sculptures we see on the Khandagiri, Udaygiri caves, in that these two stand out, especially to show us the position of women in Kharavala's time. This particular phrase shows an armed fight between a man and a woman. Like you see the stance of this woman here, like she's on a one-on-one fight. Look at her stance, look at her attire, the position, the way she is positioning her body. So it shows that she's well versed in the arm act of warfare or dueling. And look at the confidence she has. And here on this side, I show you a little phrase about the capture and training of elephants by a group of people. Now, in a group of people, you see there are a lot of women also. Look at the lead bodies these women have with the six packs, and how nicely sculpted their bodies were. That means they were not, um, they were like physically very active, and they had equal standing with the men of their society in doing all these really difficult tasks. And it is said that even there were very skilled women mahots who actually could capture and tame elephants on their own. So apart from this, in the Udaygiri Khandagiri caves, we also see royals, the royal ladies also sculpted along with Kharavela. And I just picked these two to show you the commoners, not just royals, because the commoners also enjoyed that much of equality, where they had a choice of learning anything. If they wanted to learn scriptures or art or craft or dance or warfare, military, they had a choice to do it. So it's just like how it is almost today. So it's not that women are supposed to do a certain thing or women are supposed to. So long back in our history, we see 2200 years ago, the women enjoying such a beautiful position in society. Now going a little ahead into the times of Princess Hemamala of Kalinga. If you had seen my previous presentation about Odisha's heritage, we were talking about Princess Hemamala. She was a Kalinga princess who went to Sinhala, that is present-day Sri Lanka, carrying the tooth relic of Buddha. Now, in Odisha, we might have forgotten in the present day about this brave and ingenious princess, but Sinhalese people, the people of Sri Lanka, still remember the Hemamali and Prince Danta who came to Sinhala with the very, invaluable, the very precious tooth relic, the relic of Buddha himself, which is still worshipped in the Temple of Tooth and Candy, Sri Lanka. So another princess, Lakshminkara, she lived in the kingdom of Sambhala. She was a princess of Sambhala, which is none other than the present-day Sambalpur region. And she was married to the king of Lankapuri. So Sambhala was a Buddhist kingdom and Lankapuri was not. And when she was married to the king, later on she developed a certain she was a very different type of princess. She was very unique in her position, like she was a sister of Mahasiddha Indrabhuti. Indrabhuti was the king of Sambhala and he was a Mahasiddha. In the he started the tantric Buddhism path of Vajrayana, and she was the aunt of Guru Padmasambhava, that's Indrabhuti's adopted son. But when she got married, she had a renunciation of, she had a epiphany and she renounced her life as a royal, and she ran away to a charnel ground, to a cave where she practiced austere practices to attain siddhi, and she became a Mahasiddha herself. And she was the founder of Sahajayana in the path of Tantric Buddhism. Now she's Lakshminkara had a very, very wide follower among the common women folk, common people of Odisha. As we were talking in one of our previous slides about the ladies of the the Kumari Patana, the seven sisters, the Saptabhoni legends. So Lakshminkara had a lot of followers in the common strata of society. So these two Buddhist princesses from Orissa, they are also unique in showing that they are brave, they are unique, they took a they took a different path and made their position in their times. Then there is another very dear princess who lived 700 years ago. She was a princess of the house of Eastern Gangas, daughter of King Ananga Bhimadeva, the sister of King Narasingha Deva, who built the Konark temple. She was married to a prince from the Haihavanshi, Prince Paramardi Deva, about whom you might have heard in one of our talks on Odisha given by Soumya about the different martial heroes about Odisha, where there are like a couple of slides about Narasingha Deva's expeditions to Bengal and Ananga Bhima's expeditions, after which Paramardi Deva was and Chandrika Devi were married. So Chandrika Devi, she was a princess, but she was very accomplished in arts, music, texts. She was very spiritual. She was a benevolent woman. She was beautiful. That's why her father had named her as Chandra. She was treasured and beloved by all. Now, why are we talking about Chandrika in this presentation? Is because she has left a very beautiful relic, that is the Ananta Vasudeva Mandira, Ananta Vasudeva temple in Bhubaneswar, which was commissioned by her in the memory of her late husband, the Samantarai Sri Paramardi Deva. Now, when Sri Paramardi Deva got his Sadgati, he died during the battle, fighting the enemies for his brother-in-law's army. He was a general. So after that, um, Princess Chandrika commissioned this temple during the times of King Bhanudeva, her nephew, and which was completed during like after a few years. So this particular there is a inscription called as inscription of Chandra or Princess Chandrika inscription, which was taken to London by the Hindu Stuart or Keto, which was brought later by the inscription was copied and brought, and from that we know a lot about Princess Chandrika's life and times. Not just Chandrika, during different times of Odisha, there were queens, queen mothers, princesses who contributed their presence and interest and patronage to different aspects of royal and common life. So some names stand out, like Queen Kalyana Devi of Shailodbhavas, Mahadevi Ananka Devi, Chippa Mahadevi of the Nagavanshi Bhanjas, the Queen Somala Devi, Queen Sita Devi of the Eastern Gangas, and many more. Out of that, I have picked this particular temple as an example. This is another temple complex which is very beautiful. It's the Brahmeshwara temple complex in Bhubaneswar, which is a 11th century, it was built during the 11th century. It was commissioned to be built under the patronship of Queen Kolavati, who was the mother of the king Udyotakeshari. So the Queen Mother had commissioned this, and it still stands beautifully in Bhubaneswar. So if you're ever in Bhubaneswar, do visit this temple and see the beautiful architecture on the walls. Another queen who stands out, although she was a queen of a little small state called Bang. Not state means a small kingdom. It was like the feudatory kingdoms of one was Banki, and it's more recent times, 18th century. She is a brave queen who fought and won an almost lost battle. Now here is a battle which was not against like invaders from like foreign invaders or colonial invaders, but as we all know, there were like fights between neighboring kingdoms also, right? During post-medieval times, medieval times, and before. So in this case, one of the neighboring kings had attacked her kingdom, mainly because she was supposed to be very, like she was one of the most beautiful women of her times, and the neighboring king wanted to uh, like uh, take her and marry her. But because of that, when the neighboring king attacked, and there was a fight between Banki and the other kingdom, then Banki and even her father and brother's kingdom was helping. That time, Banki, her husband's king military suffered a lot of losses. So there was a heavily battered army, and only 700 soldiers were left. And they finally thought that they'll give up because the king died. And after that, the army thought they will surrender. At this time, the queen Sukade, she took to the arms, and she came and fought along with her soldiers. She motivated an already heavily battered army and led them to a battle in a do or die situation. She fought valiantly, she single handedly eliminated several soldiers of the invading army. She finally challenged the king himself to a one on one fight. She defeated the king and captured him as a prisoner, thus ending the war. Now the common the conclusion will be she captured the king and maybe she put the king to death, or jailed him. No, she didn't do that. She showed great foresight, because she thought if she did that, then in the future times there'll be still conflicts and warfare and continuous battles happening, which the people should not be subjected to. So she showed great foresight in pardoning the captured enemy king, thinking ahead to prevent any further burden of war on her people and any strife between the two kingdoms. So this brave queen, the Queen Rani Sukhadevi of Banki, she also is a stuff of legends. Many of the locals still remember her. There are like places named after her, and a college also named after her. Here is a queen from very, very recent times, actually, from the turn of the century, like early 20th century. She is Rani Sujamani Pattamahadi. Pattamahadi is a title of like the queens of Puri and other queens, means the principal queen, Pattamahadi. So Rani Sujamani, she was a brave, intelligent, and pragmatic queen, well versed in archery, hunting, and highly educated, and very, very good in administrative affairs. Now, at that time, Odisha had already, um, uh, you know, uh, become a little different. The society in the royal households were a little different than, maybe 500, 600 years ago. So now the system of Parda was there. The queens didn't come out to the forefront. And there were like different rules for women, which were different than the men of those times. But she broke the shackles of a limited power for women type of society. She exemplified great determination, bravery, spiritualism, and a great acumen for administration. When her husband, the king of Puri, had an untimely death in 1859, rather than accepting her fate and vanishing into the shadows of obscurity, she took up the momentous task of managing the royal duties on behalf of her minor son, and even later for her minor grandson. She made sure that the legacy of the Gajapatis of Puri continued to be carried forward. She had demonstrated this same thing from her girlhood days, when she was not even married to the king of Puri. Because of how she was, the then king of Puri was very impressed by her personality and wanted to make her his daughter-in-law. And when they were this girl from the another kingdom and their retinue were coming, there is a story that goes that when her father's, people were like all camping near the river, she was not asleep, and she saw a huge crocodile, an estuarine crocodile, crossing the river to enter into the camp area, where the crocodile have gobbled up people, because these estuarine crocodiles are known to be like, people gobblers. So she saw that, and she went on fighting hand on hand, like just with a sword for, like, she killed that huge crocodile. And that is also like a very that was a very unique and brave thing at that point of time in the night, when a mere girl would be scared and screaming her lungs out. She showed all that presence of mind and bravery to save so many lives that time. And when she was the queen, initially she had taken the back seat when her husband was the king. But after her husband's death, the things that she did made sure that the line of the Gajapatis, the administration, the day-to-day running of the kingdom was very smoothly happening. But by this time, the Britishers were already there was a colonial rule in Odisha already. And uh, one instance which happened was the British Raj wanted to take over the administration of the Jagannath temple. So during this time, when the British Raj wanted to take over the temple administration, she went on and fought a legal battle against them to keep the administration with the Puri Gajapati family. Now, none other than Utkala Gaurava Madhusudan Das fought this case as a lawyer. Madhubabu's strong arguments made the case in the Rani's favor. The British government put the Rani in charge of the temple administration, authorized her to appoint or dismiss a manager, and and given her a full power to control the Sevayaks. She successfully managed it for more than 3 decades. So, because of her, pragmatism, the temple administration stayed with the Odia people, not the Britishers. During the Great Famine of 1866, that is Naanka Durbhikya, it is one of the biggest blots in our society, one of the saddest chapters of Odisha's history, where millions perished. During this time, she made a pragmatic decision and opened the Sri Mandira's Mahaprasad to be free for all, to be given off to all the starving masses. This is one more very unique story from Odisha's chapter about a commoner, Manika Godoni. She is a simple village belle for whom the Gajapati, actually Purushottam Dev, he had dedicated multiple villages and named it as Manika Patana. Now, why did I pick this story? Why is she noteworthy? Because she hails from a simple cowherd community, but she was gutsy and bold enough to stop a king's army and ask for her dues. Her story is a constant reminder for Odias everywhere that if need be, then the deities themselves, the Kaliya Baliya duo, that is Jagannath and Balabhadra, they would lead the Odias safely from any looming threats or calamity befalling their land. Now, if some of you might already know the story about how Purushottam Deva's Kanchi Abhiyan, maybe like today it will be a little long if I tell you about the entire story. So if you're interested, please search about the Kanchi Abhijan story, why it is so important in our history. But here the very the significant part of a woman what I have picked up is about Manika Goduni. Then there were accomplished scholars in Odisha's history. A person called Jirhadei, or the Dombi Mata. She stands out because she was a lady from the Domba community, a tribal community, and she's supposed to have written a commentary on the Sishu Veda. Shivarani, a noble lady of the Ganga lineage, she was known as the Kali Yuga Saraswati because of her unmatched academic and scholarly expertise. Then there were other accomplished scholars in the medieval times. Madhavi Dasi, a renowned poetess from the 15th century, wrote many kavyas, poems, and plays, and different types of literature. Nandabai, she is a very unique poetess who wrote the Rukmini Chautisa. Chautisas are like poems where like every line starts with the consonant, each consonant like ka, kha, ga, like that. So Chautisa written by Nandabai, the Rukmini Chautisa, is supposed to be one of the most important ones, like the benchmarks of composing any Chautisa. So somebody like the Kabi Samrat Upendra Bhanja himself mentions that if you want to write a good Chautisa, write it like composing it like Nandabai. There were other royal princesses also who composed many auspicious marriage songs, bhajans, etc. Now, coming to literacy and education in Odia women. So, was it only the royal ladies who were literate and educated, or other people also? Other girls were also educated from other part of the other communities. I mean, so here I took two pictures. The first one is a royal lady reading a book in the early 20th century. And here is a real picture, a real snapshot clicked by Martin Hurliman, which was published in 1909, of young girls on their way to school in Bhubaneswar. Look at these faces, they are going to school. Like, these are all young girls. That means they must be going to a chapter study, a small, the early primary school. So, a real statistic from British surveys, which was later curated by none other than Sri Dharampal from the British Archives. I got few lines and statistics from that, which I would just say quickly that from Odisha's, at that time, Odisha was already portions of Odisha were with Madras Presidency, portions of Odisha were with Bengal, and portions were with central provinces. So this particular statistic is from the Madras Presidency's statistics, where Ganjam, Koraput, all these regions are mentioned. So Jaipur and Ganjam are mentioned on the number of girls and boys who attended school in Odisha. So the Hindu girls attended school were from Sudra and other Hindu castes. So that means all different castes, people also send their kids to school. And girls from affluent families, of course, they also receive private tutoring. So now coming to the last portion of our segment, although it has become a lengthy talk, but I thank you all to be patient and kind to listen to this talk. So let's go to the pioneers and trailblazers. We have seen a lot of brave women and significant women through the times. Rama Devi, Sarala Devi, Malati Chaudhary, Annapurna Maharana, Lakshmi Panda, and of course Nandini Satpathy, the first woman chief minister of Odisha. Now the ladies who had a lot of contribution in the freedom fight of India from the British Raj, they moved on to working in the social causes of women upliftment, like education, about equality, about so many different things post independence period. And this particular lady, Lakshmi Panda, she was the youngest Fauji, the 14-year-old Odia girl, the youngest Fauji of recruited Fauji of Netaji's Azad Hind Fauj. And Nandini Satpathy was the first woman chief minister of Odisha. Odia women have showed their mark in different fields, in different professions. So there have been academicians, scientists, activists, doctors, engineers, lawyers, mountaineers, aviators. So one, like for example, Giri Bala Mahanti, she was the first Odia female aviator to have a license to fly a private aircraft. Then so we see so many renowned names and significant names who have made their mark in different fields. We have Vodia women who have become accomplished dancers, singers, and directors of movies, poetesses, Odia women IPS officers, writers, sports persons. And among all these pictures I have showed you, there have been Padma Bhushans, Padma Shris. They have been accomplished in their own field and made a mark of their own. So, and of course, countless women who, as mothers, or in Odia we call Bo or Ma, So many countless faces of women who are mothers, each of whose significance is what beyond any words can describe. Because Nari Samajasya Kushala Vastukara, woman, the able architect of a society. Without the able women of a society, the great the men and the people of Odisha would not have, gone ahead to do all their heroic stuff or brave stuff, or become great achievers or big names for themselves. So to all the countless mothers and women who have led from the background. Now this is the season of the goddess arriving. Recently we welcomed, like within the Sodasopata, the sorry the season of goddess, the Sahasra Kumbhavisheka just happened, which starts the 16-day worship and which culminates on Dashera. So Ma Durga's arrival is right around the corner. So with that, I would like to say that Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Smriti Rupena Sanstita, Namastasya 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 Namo Namah. Now, why I say Smriti Rupena? We pray to the Mother Goddess, Goddess Durga, and the goddesses, all the supreme goddesses, that, oh Goddess, come to us as the Smriti, the memory of all our ancestors, the memory that we carry, the memory that will shape our future generations, the memory of all these good times, the achievements, the best things that have happened in our society, the memory of all the wrongdoings that also need to be corrected. So, as the memory, the good memory, oh Mother, manifest and lead us in doing better things and making a better society. And a talk will be incomplete if we don't invoke Jagannatha. In our Shakta belief, Jagannatha is considered to be Swayam Dakshina Kalika. So, with this, Jai Jagannath, Dhanyavad, and Vande Utkala Janani, Vande Mataram, because there is no other Janani Janma Bhumishcha Swargadapi Variasi. So, Vande Utkala Janani, Vande Mataram, Jai Jagannath. Thank you so much